Hey there, Douglas V. Gibbs here, Mr. Constitution, and let's talk about reparations. California has decided that it is time to not only do reparations, but now their task force, or whatever you want to call it, they are upping the ante. So, according to the New York Post, a state task force boosts reparations figure to $360,000 for each black Californian. So, in other words, what they're saying is that in California, a state that never legalized slavery, by the way, each black citizen in the state will receive a check from the state for $360,000. Nobody else will, just black Californians. Now, originally when they're talking about this, I'm thinking, okay, well surely they don't have the money for every person. They'll probably do it by households. So I figured it out. There are, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, there are 806,733 African American households in California. And at $360,000 a pop, that would have been $290.4 billion. But that's not what they're talking about. They're talking about each person. So according to the New York Post, the Reparations Task Force in California has increased the amount of money it wants taxpayers to hand out in compensation for racial discrimination and enslavement. And after first proposing $220,000 in payments last year, the California Reparations Task Force proposed at a meeting Friday that every black citizen in the state should be given a $360,000 check. Why they went higher to $360,000, I don't know. And there's all kinds of interesting things that happen here, but let's get back to this. The project could cost as much as $640 billion. That's 2/3 of $1 trillion that now will be pumped into the economy. Now, from an economics point of view, what happens when you pump more money into an economy? Well, Doug, that money's already, where are they getting it from? What's going to happen is this is going to be created ultimately by the United States. They're going to lend it, something like that. They're going into debt. They're going to borrow it, so that'll bring it into existence. Because money is created when it's borrowed. They don't have it. So they're going to borrow it, so it's going to be created into existence, created by the banking system. When they borrow this money, $640 billion, what happens when you put money into a system without value behind it? You just put it into the system. It devalues the dollar. It messes up the economy. In other words, you stick $640 billion into the system, and then what it does is it devalues the dollar, so it takes more to buy something. So the money they're giving them will be will make money in total for everybody worth less. Inflation, higher prices, deflation of the dollar, so on and so forth. But hey, who cares? It's the fair thing to do, even though the money won't be worth anything and they won't be able to buy anything with it, and everybody will be screwed. That's beside the point. And so Shirley Weber, California Secretary of State Shirley Weber, which when she was a representative, I had a meeting with her staff one time. Her staff was a real group of pieces of work. I couldn't even imagine dealing with her directly. If California can admit its sins and change the narrative, then there's a way forward for states and cities across the nation. So in other words, she's saying, hey, California's doing $640 billion. We're going to give $360,000 to each. All cities and states ought to do such. Well, if you're sticking 2/3 of $1 trillion in the system, and it's already going to be an inflationary nightmare because you're pumping money into the system without value behind it, fiat money, and it's going to mess. What's going to happen when you do it across the board? What's going to happen is the dollar devalues, prices go up, and America becomes a third world country because you thought you'd be fair. And all that money those people got will be worthless, and it'll take a wheelbarrow full to go buy a loaf of bread. So enjoy your reparations because it will be worthless just from an economic standpoint. Now, that all said, get this out of the way here and get back to what we're talking about. So now, what about the legalities? Doug, is it constitutional? You're Mr. Constitution. Surely you would know. You know, I do. All right, so there's two things I would like us to address. Now, I could go into the California State Constitution. There is language in the California State Constitution also that that really is, there's a problem here. You're not supposed to treat anybody differently than other people. You know, you want equality, right? They all say equity, equality. Everybody's going to be treated equal. Okay, how's it treating everybody equal if you're giving one group $360,000 apiece, but nobody else. How's that treating people? Well, we're making up for the inequality. For people who, so people who never owned slaves have to give money to people who were never slaves because of slavery. What I'm referring to when it comes to that part of the scenario is Article 3, Section 3 of the United States Constitution, where it talks about treason. Now, I'm not saying this is treasonous. I mean, it is, but that's not the point here. The point here, from according to the Constitution, is if this is the case when it comes to treason, imagine what the founders would have thought across the board. This is a principle of the Constitution. Congress shall have the power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. So what it's saying is, when it comes to treason, now we're talking treason here, that if you are guilty of treason, it will not work corruption of blood. In other words, your children, their children, and so far, your sin, your guilt does not affect them. It doesn't carry corruption. So if your father was guilty of treason, you are not guilty of it. You don't have to pay for it. No, it does not work corruption of blood. And then it says, or forfeiture except during the life of the person attainted. So if you are guilty of treason and you've got to forfeit, you got to pay for it. That happens during your lifetime. But once you're gone, the forfeiture's over. Your children, your grandchildren, they don't have to pay for your sin of treason. So if with treason there shall work no forfeiture of blood or forfeiture of anything for the downline, the posterity of the person who's guilty, why would something different be true for something for like slavery? All right, so first of all, this is just a principle, though. But now let's get more specific. Is it really unconstitutional? Okay, it goes against that principle, Doug. We get it. The corruption of blood and forfeiture past someone's lifetime when they were guilty of something is something that the founders were against. But is there anything that specifically says you can't do this? Oh, absolutely. And it's a part of the Constitution the left loves to use all the time, and now it's going against them. Amendment 14, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States. In other words, the privileges and immunities, we'll go back to, real quick, we'll go all the way back to Article 4. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens of the several states, in several states. In other words, the privileges and immunities are going to be the same for each citizen. We're all going to be treated equally, privileges and immunities. First of all, then it goes on, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So that kind of ties into this, but here's where it gets good. Nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. In other words, under the laws, there's an equal treatment. So if this group's get a check, everybody gets a check. If this group is going to be fined for something that didn't happen during their lifetime, then everybody should be, and so on and so forth. What we're doing is we're saying, no, because of the color of your skin, you get a check, and because of the color of your skin, you got to pay for it. You just violated the Equal Protection Clause. Then, the purpose of the Equal Protection Clause is to make sure that all citizens are treated equally under the law. That no law would be used to give special treatment. Well, Doug, you got that white privilege, and you're getting the privilege, so it goes getting. There's no white privilege. Well, Doug, you got. Really? I grew up before my parents moved out to the Inland Empire in California. I grew up in the L.A. County. The last place I lived was right off of Atlantic and Harding in North Long Beach. For those of you in Southern California, you know the area. That's where I grew up. I grew up very, very, very humble. Was I super, 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 super poor? No. But we definitely weren't middle class, or at least not until right before I graduated high school and all that. I grew up with humble beginnings. When I got married right out of high school, and granted, that's my own decision. That's what I decided to do, but humble beginnings. I rented. I worked my way up. Worked my butt off. There was no privilege there. I worked in construction, and I dug ditches for a living for the longest time, matter of fact. I remember when I got into construction after getting out of the Navy, and then I worked for a city. I worked for the Navy, then a credit union, then a city. And then I got into construction for 20 years. And during the first 2 weeks of construction, my hands bled. It was such hard work. There was no privilege there. I worked my tail off to get what I have. And in this day and age, to say that there is racism, you're right, there is racism. These reparations, that's racism. Oh, because of your skin being white, I'm told, you are guilty. You are automatically racist. And it's not racist to treat you in a racist manner. It is racist. Whatever happened to judge a person not by the color of the skin, but the content of their character? Isn't that what we should be doing? And also it violates the United States Constitution. Equal protection clause, we're supposed to be equal under the law. That's the reason why affirmative action, the quotas, has never really been law. It's a practice. It's a policy of a lot of companies, stuff like that. But it's actually not law. It's never really been law per se. Why? Because the courts have struck it down as unconstitutional. Why? Because it's treating one group differently than another group. It's, you have to hire so many people of this color, regardless of whether or not they have the skill set. No. It's by merit. Well, that might be unfair because they don't. This country is not what we're being told it is. Hey, I grew up a tough way. I worked my butt off. I was in construction for 20 years. I dug ditches for a living. Now, a lot of it was because of my decisions. A lot of it was because of just different situations. I know an awful lot of people, my color, different color, whatever. They've done well. They've not done well. So for some people, it's harder. For some people, it's not so hard because of various situations. But the law is not supposed to say, okay, well, because we think you might have a tougher time, we're going to now give you a higher hot bar or a lower bar to reach. And since you, even though you were never a slave, and he was never a slave owner, he's got to pay extra taxes and you're going to get a check. So that is racist. That is intolerant. That is against the Constitution and against what our country is all about. Now we go back to corruption of blood. I have a friend of mine who was a Puerto Rican kid born in the Bronx, grew up, served in the United States Marine Corps. I was Navy, so we joke about how Navy was always gives the Marines a ride. But anyway, and I asked him, what was the first thing that struck him about the Constitution? And he says, well, growing up, he came across that line, corruption of blood. And what it meant to him was he's an individual. Who his dad was, what his dad was, where his dad was on the pole of life, the class or whatever, didn't matter. He was his own man. There was no corruption of blood. What his parents were guilty of or not guilty of, what stature, what level of poverty, didn't matter. He was his own man because corruption of blood would not be worked. Reparations works corruption of blood. Reparations treats one group differently than another group and violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Reparations is unconstitutional. And on top of that, California doesn't have the money, and by pumping all that money into the system, you're putting the economy into greater jeopardy. You're throwing fiat money in the situation. You're going to create deflation of the dollar, inflation of prices. Because you're trying to be fair. It's unconstitutional for a reason. All right, thanks for watching. My name is Douglas V. Gibbs. I am Mr. Constitution, and you can go to politicalpistachio.com or douglasvgibbs.com, or you know what? Over here, no, it's over here. It's right here, right about there. There's a subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to this channel. I've got a bunch of them. You don't like coming to this particular channel? You say, well, I'd rather watch your videos on such and such. No problem. YouTube, BitChute. Got 2 YouTubes, BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, and we're also getting ready to do a nice big renovation of my website. And of course, all of the stuff I do. I teach 6 Constitution classes. I've written 9 books. Check out the books, douglasvgibbs.com. books. I've written 9 books. I've got blogs. I've got videos. I've got podcasts. I've got 2 radio shows, both on Saturdays. One on KMET from 1 to 3 Pacific, a live show and a pre-record on Saturdays at 9 p.m. on KPRZ, the Christian station down in San Diego County. And that's the Mr. Constitution Hour, which you can also get on all of the podcast channels. Go to iHeart or Audible or Odyssey or Spotify or whatever. Mr. Constitution Hour by Douglas V. Gibbs, and you'll find it. Be sure to donate. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit that notification bell there if that's available to you on this particular video page. And come back often. I'm gonna try to put out. I try to put out videos as much as I can. Let's learn the Constitution. Let's become informed together, because only an informed public can be a free public. Let's restore the republic by being educated. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. United we stand. Combined we kick butt. God bless America, my friends. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.